moment every trader eventually confronts, a moment that separates the people who survive in the market from the people the market permanently eliminates. It happens quietly. A position goes against you, a chart doesn't move the way you expected, and suddenly the confidence you felt at the beginning of the trade starts slipping away. You don't want to admit it, but deep down you already know something is wrong. And in that exact moment, the truth begins to reveal itself: the market is never wrong, only the trader is. That line isn't just a clever phrase. It's a mirror held up to every decision, every assumption, every emotional impulse. When the market moves, it moves with a force greater than your opinion, greater than your strategy, greater than your confidence. It moves according to its own logic, unbothered by your hopes and unaffected by your fears. And the instant you try to impose your personal beliefs on something as vast and indifferent as the market, you lose the one advantage you could have had: clarity. Most traders don't lose because the market is brutal, they lose because they refuse to accept what the market is showing them. They argue with the price. They argue with the trend. They argue with the tape. They cling to an opinion, a prediction, a gut feeling, and try to force the market to match their narrative. But the market doesn't bend. The market doesn't negotiate. It simply reflects the sum of every force acting upon it, and that reflection is the only truth a trader ever gets. There is a particular kind of pain a trader feels when the market proves them wrong, and it isn't financial, it's psychological. It's the ego screaming for justification. It's the mind refusing to let go. It's the belief that the market must come back, that somehow the chart owes you a reversal, that your logic is sound and the market is simply being irrational. But that emotion, that internal resistance, is exactly what destroys accounts. Because while the trader is fighting their own mind, the market is doing what it always does, moving. A disciplined trader recognizes this faster than everyone else. They don't argue with price. They don't complain about manipulation. They don't convince themselves that holding a losing position will miraculously turn a bad decision into a good one. They watch the market like a silent observer, accepting what it shows without resistance. When the price moves against them, they don't question the market, they question themselves. And that self-questioning is the difference between survival and destruction. The moment you believe the market is wrong, you lose control. And the more you try to fight a force you can't influence, the deeper you sink. But when you accept the truth the market presents, even when it hurts, you regain your power. You become calm where others panic. You become objective where others are emotional. You become adaptable where others are rigid, and slowly, trade by trade, you begin to understand that the market's movement is never your enemy. The real enemy is your inability to accept reality quickly enough. There is no shame in being wrong, every trader is wrong. The shame is in refusing to admit it. Because in the market, denial is expensive. Ego is expensive. Hope is expensive. A single stubborn moment can cost you more than months of discipline ever earned. But the trader who accepts that the market is never wrong learns to cut losses early, protect capital, and wait for the moments when the market finally aligns with their strategy. They learn to sync with the truth instead of resisting it. And in that alignment, everything changes. Most traders sit down at their screens believing the same quiet lie, that the market is what stands in their way. They think their losses come from volatility, manipulation, news events, or unexpected moves on the chart. But the truth is far more uncomfortable. The market doesn't destroy traders. Traders destroy themselves long before the market ever gets the chance. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes that the real battle is not on the chart, it's inside your own mind. The moment a trader places a trade, Something shifts. What was once a neutral chart suddenly becomes personal. Every tick matters. Every candle feels like judgment. Profits spark excitement, which clouds judgment. Losses ignite fear, which distorts logic. And in that emotional storm, traders forget the most important truth: the market does not know you exist. The only enemy that has power over you is the one that speaks inside your head. A trader can follow the perfect strategy, use flawless technical analysis, and still lose everything because they haven't learned to control themselves. The charts aren't the problem. The entries aren't the problem. The problem is the mind that refuses to stay disciplined when pressure rises. The problem is the temptation to chase, to hope, to gamble, to break rules just this once. Every blown account begins with a single thought: maybe this time will be different. And that thought is the seed of destruction. Fear whispers that you should exit too early. Greed whispers that you should hold too long. Ego convinces you that you're smarter than the trend. Hope tells you to stay in a losing trade because the market has to come back. But the market doesn't have to do anything. It moves on without you, indifferent to whether you succeed or fail. And it's in those moments when your emotions rise against you that the real test begins. The traders who survive, the ones who actually grow, don't win because they have better tools or better indicators. They win because they know how to silence the internal chaos. They know how to sit still when their minds beg them to act. They know how to walk away when everything inside screams to keep fighting. They know when to surrender their ego and accept reality, and most importantly, they know that every trade is a mirror reflecting their own strengths and weaknesses. Losses don't come from the chart, they come from refusing to admit you were wrong. Blow ups don't happen because of bad luck, they happen because you ignored the signs. Emotional decisions feel good for a moment, and cost you everything later. But logical decisions, disciplined decisions, feel uncomfortable at first and save you from losses you never even see. When a trader finally understands that the real danger comes from within, something changes. The panic fades. The impulses weaken. The need to be right disappears. You stop trying to control the market and start trying to control yourself. And suddenly, what once felt chaotic begins to make sense. The market hasn't changed. You have. And that shift is what separates traders who fade away from traders who finally find their path. And once that shift takes place, once a trader finally understands that the market was never the opponent, everything begins to move differently. Suddenly, the chart doesn't feel like a battlefield anymore. The noise quiets. The panic that once controlled every decision loses its power. The urge to chase disappears. The fear of missing out becomes a distant memory. What's left is a calm awareness, a clarity that only comes from seeing the market as it truly is, not a threat, not an obstacle, but a teacher. Most traders never reach this point. They spend their entire trading lives fighting shadows, blaming volatility, blaming institutions, blaming algorithms, blaming anything except themselves. They search for the perfect indicator, the perfect entry, the perfect system, believing that the answer lies somewhere outside of them. But nothing outside can save a trader who refuses to confront what's inside. Because the hardest battles are not fought on charts, they're fought in silence, between you and your own impulses. Between discipline and desire. Between patience and panic. Between truth and the story you want to believe. The moment you learn to stop lying to yourself, your trading transforms. You start cutting losses without hesitation. You start taking profits without greed. You start respecting trends instead of trying to beat them. You stop needing to be right and start needing to be disciplined. And discipline is the only currency that truly buys survival in this business. You begin to see that the market doesn't punish you out of cruelty, it punishes you for your refusal to listen. Every loss becomes a message, every mistake a lesson, every setback a direction pointing toward a deeper understanding. And with that understanding, trading no longer feels random. Patterns emerge. Behavior becomes predictable. Not because the market changed, but because your mind finally stopped distorting what was always there. This is the moment where traders evolve. Not when they find a better strategy or a new indicator, but when they realize that the market rewards truth, the truth about the trend, the truth about the price, the truth about themselves. Most people run from that truth because it's uncomfortable. It demands humility. It requires admitting that the losses weren't bad luck, they were the result of ignoring what the market was showing. But the traders who face that truth become something different. They become stable in chaos, controlled in uncertainty, focused under pressure. They trade with the market, not against it. They act without fear, observe without bias, and execute without hesitation. And the irony is, once you stop fighting the market stops feeling like it's fighting you. At that point, trading becomes less about predicting and more about responding. Less about forcing and more about flowing. Less about winning and more about surviving long enough for the odds to turn in your favor. Because the secret is simple, the market will eventually reward those who respect it and destroy those who challenge it. In the end, the trader